Chapter 672. Second senior brother is right. The exploding fruit can sense life from hundreds of meters away. However, each exploding fruit tree will explode in sequence. It's impossible for two exploding fruits to explode at the same time. If you can't avoid all of them, you can slow down a little. That way, you will have enough time to react. Qin Yusin didn't want Yi Chen's results to be too bad, so she told him some of the details. Actually, you don't have to tell me. Yi Chen loved challenges and finding his own rules. Before entering a dangerous place, no one would know what was inside. Everything was unknown, and it was precisely because everything was unknown that it could reflect a person's reaction and insight. Li Feng sneered, "Junior Sister Qin, he doesn't even appreciate your kindness. Why do you need to do this? Perhaps he has the confidence to get a good result? Shut your mouth if you want to find trouble." Yi Chen no longer cared about the mockery from before, but he wasn't a clay figurine. Even if he was, he would still have some anger. Facing Li Feng's aggressiveness, Yi Chen glared at him coldly. His gaze caused Li Feng's body to go numb. He could still think, but he couldn't move his body. It was as if he was being locked on by the most dangerous creature. As long as he moved his body, he would suffer a destructive blow. "Junior Sister Qin, help me open the drain," Yi Chen said to Qin Yusin. Qin Yusin was also frightened by Yi Chen. She could faintly feel that Yi Chen was 10 times more terrifying than she had imagined. Just now, Yi Chen was only targeting her second senior brother, Li Feng, but it made her feel as if her life was in danger. This was a subconscious feeling that couldn't be explained. The drain was opened, and water began to flow down. Swish! In a flash, Yi Chen turned into a blue light and disappeared into the exploding orchard. His starting speed was even faster than Li Feng's. So fast. Apart from Li Feng and Qin Yusin, the others didn't feel anything strange. They were astonished and furious that Yi Chen dared to tell their second senior brother to shut up. In any case, Li Feng was a disciple of Dragon God's Celestial Palace, while Yi Chen was an outsider. Between the two, they would naturally side with Li Feng. However, when they saw Yi Chen's speed, they were still astonished. What's the point of being fast? The exploding orchard tests one's reaction speed and perception. If you can't do either, being fast will only make you look worse. Not bad, he can come out within 400 scales. I will eat an exploding fruit. 400 scales is already a very good result. If it comes out within 500 scales, I'll eat 2 exploding fruits. You should know that many of us who took the test for the first time achieved more than 1,000 scales. Many disciples discussed among themselves, and most of them were not optimistic about Yi Chen's chances. Bastard! As soon as Yi Chen left, Li Feng immediately recovered from the numbness of his body. He felt that he had lost all face. Being told to shut up in front of Qin Yusin was tantamount to a direct humiliation. What he couldn't accept the most was that he was actually frightened by a single glance from the other party. He couldn't forgive himself no matter what. The extreme humiliation made Li Feng's first thought not of Yi Chen's scariness, but the humiliation he had suffered. He glanced at Qin Yusin and said in a low voice, "Just wait and see. When the result comes out, he will know what it means to court humiliation." Qin Yusin said, "Second senior brother, you don't need to oppose him. No matter what, he is still a genius favored by the sect leader. Junior Sister Qin, why are you so partial to him?" Li Feng's face revealed a dissatisfied expression. Qin Yusin sighed. She knew that Li Feng was currently in a fit of anger and wouldn't listen to anything she said. However, she could feel that Yi Chen's reputation wasn't undeserved. He was truly powerful. If it was as Grandpa Yu had said, second senior brother wouldn't be his opponent no matter what. Pung 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 pung. The sounds of explosions were unceasing from near to far. Inside the exploding orchard, a faint shadow was shuttling through the flames. Every time he moved, he would travel 1 li. The flames could only chase after him and couldn't touch his body. And the source of these flames was actually fruits. The fruits were shot out from the trees. Following the trajectory of the flames, one could see that the trees were filled with fruits that looked like honeycombs. They were the size of wash basins, and from those holes, oval-shaped fruits were constantly shooting out. When they encountered powerful air currents or objects, they would immediately explode, creating layers upon layers of flames. Although Yi Chen couldn't release his soul power, his eyes were like an eagle's. The trajectories of the fruits were all imprinted in the depths of his pupils. Then, according to these trajectories, he would quickly calculate the safest path and pass through it with his fastest speed. Rumble! At least 100 fruits shot out from dozens of fruit trees in the surroundings. When they collided, the flames soared into the sky like mushrooms. However, at this critical moment, Yi Chen had already passed through the mushroom-shaped flames. Since he couldn't use Zhenyuan, the flames were only a finger's distance away from burning his clothes. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch up. That exploding fruit tree ahead seems to be unusual. There was only one path in the orchard, and it was in the shape of a ring. The starting and ending points of the ring were the same. After running for about 1/3 of the way, an exploding fruit tree that was several times taller than ordinary exploding fruit trees appeared on the left side of the path. The exploding fruits on it were the size of a water jar, and the front was filled with densely packed holes. Each hole was the size of a fist. Puff, 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 puff. Sensing the life energy, the gigantic exploding fruit tree shot out fist-sized, oval-shaped fruits one after another. Although it was done in an orderly manner, the speed at which it shot out was too fast. One after another, they brought along a white wave of air. It's too dense. I can't go through it directly. Yi Chen didn't slow down. He pulled out the gold sword from his waist and waved it countless times. At least a dozen fruits were cut in half. Although he couldn't use Zhenyuan, with the absolute speed of his sword, it was impossible for the fruits to touch Yi Chen. A pile of fruits that had been cut in half fell on the ground, but they didn't explode. Yi Chen's figure flickered as he passed through the rest of the exploding fruit trees. This exploding fruit orchard indeed has a set. Although it's only used to test reaction and perception, it still feels like a large-scale battle. In Yi Chen's eyes, the exploding fruit trees on both sides were like enemies. They wanted to attack him, and all he had to do was evade their attacks and reach the destination. It seemed simple, but once one got used to it, one's survivability would increase imperceptibly in a large-scale battle. Sometimes, even if one was scared stiff, one's body would subconsciously move. Yi Chen's guess wasn't wrong. The exploding fruit orchard's true purpose was to let the disciples of Dragon God's celestial palace adapt to large-scale battles and increase their survivability. This was something every 5th grade sect had to do. After all, large-scale battles were completely different from ordinary ones. Yi Chen's speed was extremely fast, and he didn't seem to slow down at all. When he was only a dozen li away from the destination, the rumbling sound of explosions reached everyone's ears. How is this possible? It's only 300 scales. He's actually a lot faster than second senior brother. They're not on the same level at all. Hearing the sound getting closer and closer, some people couldn't help but look at the scale. Immediately, they were all stupefied. Li Feng's face turned black as he tightly clenched his fists. Beside him, Chen Yusen sucked in a breath of cold air. She originally thought that in Yi Chen's first test, a passable result would already be pretty good. But how could she have imagined that not only was Yi Chen's result good, it even surpassed second senior brother's? According to the source of the sound, he would probably reach the destination after a few more scales and break second senior brother's record. Just as he expected, Yi Chen came out when the scale of the water hourglass reached 305. The sound of people sucking in breaths resounded. 305 scales. Could it be that he didn't slow down at all? Impossible. If he didn't slow down, how could he pass through the net of exploding fruit trees? His whole body would be blown away. Clamorous discussions broke out. Senior brother Yi, you've created a new record, 305 scales. Chen Yusen stared blankly for a moment, then greeted him with a smile. Yi Chen said, not bad, this exploding fruit orchard does have some tricks. Chen Yusen smiled bitterly. Only Yi Chen thought that the exploding fruit orchard had some tricks. They had given it their all, not daring to relax in the slightest. What a shameless fellow. Right at this moment, Li Feng's voice rang out. Yi Chen's eyes turned cold as he looked at Li Feng. What did you say? I said you're shameless. Li Feng sneered. In order to win, You actually used Zhen Yuan in the exploding fruit orchard. So what if you win? Hearing these words, many disciples suddenly understood. That's right. Without using Zhen Yuan, how could he reach the finish line with only 305 scales? Immediately after, many people looked at Yi Chen in a different light. The exploding orchard only restricted soul power, not Zhen Yuan. Not allowing the use of Zhen Yuan was only an artificial restriction. Of course, in the past, no disciple of Dragon God's celestial palace would use Zhen Yuan for the sake of a good result. After all, one's reaction speed, perception, and speed were all well known. Once upon a time, a disciple of Dragon God's celestial palace used Zhen Yuan. Later on, it was discovered, and he was despised by everyone. Gradually, he was isolated. From then on, no one dared to do so again. However, Yi Chen was an outsider, so he might use Zhen Yuan. You have to take responsibility for your words. Yi Chen's voice was cold. Chen Yusin said anxiously, "Second senior brother." Li Feng coldly said, "Junior sister Chen, you're still speaking up for him. He's clearly cheating." "Whether I'm cheating or not, you'll know very soon. Do you dare to take one move from me?" Yi Chen decided to give his opponent an unforgettable lesson, letting him know the immensity of heaven and earth. Hee, after cheating you're angry from shame? Alright, I'll take one move from you. Let's see what you can do to me. Although he said so, Li Feng didn't dare to look down on Yi Chen. Before Yi Chen took the test, he still remembered that glance. Therefore, he planned to go all out and make Yi Chen speechless. He didn't believe that he couldn't even take one move from Yi Chen. It should be known that even his eldest senior brother wouldn't dare to say he could win in one move. "Senior brother Yi, be lenient." Chen Yusin knew that Yi Chen was furious. She vaguely felt that this time, her second senior brother would suffer miserably. She could only hope that Yi Chen wouldn't be too ruthless. Chen Yusin's words were still fine, but the moment she spoke, Li Feng immediately flew into a rage. He drew his long blade and glared at Yi Chen with killing intent. Chapter 673. "I know what I'm doing," Yi Chen said indifferently. "Come, Yi Chen." Li Feng was already prepared. Circulating his Zhen Yuan to the limit, the long blade was covered in a layer of green light. Holding it in his hand, it felt light as if it was weightless. Yi Chen didn't draw his sword. Instead, he walked toward Li Feng step by step. The distance between each step was the same, as if he had measured it with a ruler. His gaze was looking down on Li Feng, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in a courtyard, unhindered by rain or shine, as if he was taking the enemy's head amidst thousands of soldiers and horses. Arrogant, Li Feng was infuriated by Yi Chen. The latter didn't draw his sword, nor did he take any stance. Instead, he just walked toward him. Could it be that he thought he was a fish on the chopping block? Polar wind killing blade. With a flicker of blade light, Li Feng directly pounced toward Yi Chen. The weightless long blade in his hand transformed into a green light screen. As the long blade danced, the surrounding dust and gravel were drawn over, as if two magnetic fields had gathered on the blade. When fighting with the enemy would be involuntarily pulled toward the blade, walking right into the trap. By relying on the uniqueness of the polar wind-killing blade, Li Feng had defeated several masters with similar strength. This time, facing Yi Chen, he didn't hope to win. Instead, he hoped to remain undefeated and even make the latter suffer a little. Facing second senior brother, he actually didn't draw his sword. "It's too late now," the spectating disciples said inwardly. Chen Yusin's brows creased. No one knew what she was thinking. A shocking scene occurred. Facing Li Feng's powerful blade, Yi Chen unexpectedly extended his index finger and pointed. It wasn't void-shattering finger, but a pure finger. However, this finger contained a frightening destruction sword intent. Although Li Feng's long blade was inconceivably fast, it couldn't escape from this finger and was directly pointed at the center of the blade. A huge force was transmitted through the saber to Li Feng's wrist. Suddenly, the saber flew out of his hand and spun in the air. In the next moment, Yi Chen instantly appeared in front of Li Feng. His finger pierced through Li Feng's protective Zhen Yuan like a hot knife through butter, ruthlessly pressing on his armor. The sound of metal twisting rang out. Li Feng vomited a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. The green leather armor on his chest was completely shattered, and the inner armor had a clear fingerprint on it. The edges of the armor were slightly twisted. Li Feng suffered a crushing defeat with a single finger. Looking down at Li Feng from above, Yi Chen said indifferently, "You can't even block a single finger of mine. What qualifications do you have to question me?" The disciples of Dragon God's celestial palace were stupefied. Chen Yusen was stunned. As strong as second senior brother was, he could not even block one of Yi Chen's fingers. With one finger, the saber flew out and second senior brother fell to the ground. That feeling was like an adult poking a toddler who had just learned to walk. The toddler fell to the ground unwillingly, unable to resist. Second senior brother was struck down by a single finger? Is this true? How powerful is he exactly? Without drawing his sword, he defeated second senior brother with a single finger and in one strike? At this moment, the disciples of Dragon God's celestial palace were replaying a scene in their minds. Yi Chen leisurely strolling toward Li Feng. Under Li Feng's all-out attack, a single finger strike sent the saber flying and struck Li Feng's chest. Li Feng spurted a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. Chen Yusen covered her small mouth and let out a kitten-like whimper. Too powerful. Terrifyingly powerful. Grandpa Yu was right. In true spirit continent, he's a genius who stands above everyone. Even in Eastern Shallow Ocean, no one can compare to him. In front of him, we must be as childish as children, always thinking ourselves infallible. In Chen Yusen's eyes, Yi Chen's body seemed to be shining with radiance. It was so dazzling and eye-catching, like a sun god looking down on the second senior brother. Meanwhile, the second senior brother had already returned to his original form, looking like a firefly under the sun, dim and insignificant like a speck of dust. The gap is too big. Chen Yusen's gaze toward Yi Chen unknowingly carried a trace of worship. Even she herself didn't notice it. Impossible, this is impossible. Li Feng still couldn't believe that he had been defeated by a single finger. It was as if he was in a dream, a nightmare that he couldn't wake up from. Subconsciously looking around, he saw the dumbstruck expressions of the disciples of Dragon God's celestial palace and Chen Yusen looking at Yi Chen with worship in her eyes. Li Feng's lifeless expression gradually recovered, replaced by shame, anger, and resentment. His face had turned the color of a pig's liver, and the exclamations around his ears sounded like insults again and again. "Yi Chen, you're going too far," Li Feng roared. Yi Chen coldly looked at him. "I warned you to shut your mouth from the very beginning, unless you want to look for trouble. Unfortunately, you didn't take it seriously. You have only yourself to blame for falling into this state. What does it have to do with me? You're the one who brought this upon yourself, bastard." Using his right palm as a blade, Li Feng chopped at Yi Chen. This palm contained his anger, and its might wasn't much weaker than when he used a blade. Unfortunately, Li Feng's movements were too slow for Yi Chen. Yi Chen only needed to hit the opponent before the latter could hit him. But, not being polite at all, Yi Chen slapped Li Feng's forehead, directly knocking him out. Yi Chen would never show any mercy to this kind of person who didn't know what was good for him. Showing mercy was the same as slapping his own face. "Let's go." After doing all this, Yi Chen turned his head and said to Chen Yusen. Faintly nodding, Chen Yusen instructed a few disciples, "You guys, quickly bring second senior brother to rest." Before leaving, she helplessly glanced at the fainted Li Feng, then stealthily glanced at Yi Chen, thinking to herself, "Senior brother Yi looks very calm, but that's only when he's not angry. When he's angry, he's even more frightening than eldest brother." Riding the flying ship, the two turned around and flew into the distance. Only after the two left did the disciples dare to walk over and help Li Feng up. Second brother kicked an iron plate this time, provoking a fiend that he can't afford to provoke. Too frightening. Defeating second brother with one finger and knocking him out with one slap. Say, when second brother wakes up, will he go crazy? Don't talk so much. Honestly, I don't think second brother can do anything to Yi Chen. Blindly finding trouble with him will only make things worse. Although they didn't know much about Yi Chen, They had already listed Yi Chen as someone who couldn't be provoked. In the following days, Yi Chen didn't calm down and cultivate. It wasn't that he was slacking off, but in fact he was already in a state where it was hard for him to make any progress. In terms of Zhen Yuan, his cultivation base was at the peak of mid-Sea of Soul Realm. If he wanted to reach late Sea of Soul Realm, he would need a long time, at least a year and a half, and at most 3 to 5 years. In terms of profound martial skills, apart from Golden Hurricane, all his other profound martial skills had reached perfection. However, Golden Hurricane was a fusion of profound martial skills, and each step forward was extremely difficult. It should be known that perfection of Golden Hurricane was a high-grade profound martial skill, something that only Life and Death Kings could comprehend. Wanting to comprehend it with a cultivation base of Sea of Soul Realm was naturally extremely difficult. Only a freak like Yi Chen could comprehend Golden Hurricane to 30 to 40%. In terms of Sword Soul, Destruction Sword Soul was already at the 5th step. Wanting to raise it further would be insatiable and unrealistic. As for Immortal Sword Soul, it required an opportunity, which couldn't be rushed. As for Defensive Sword Art, the second layer was already invincible. Yi Chen needed to consolidate his foundation and couldn't rush to breakthrough. On this day, Elder Yu suddenly came looking for Yi Chen, saying that he would bring Yi Chen to the treasury. On the way, Yi Chen told Elder Yu about teaching Li Feng a lesson. It wasn't that he felt he was being excessive, but he wanted Elder Yu to understand the situation, lest something unpleasant happened. Elder Yu smiled, so be it. He deserved it. You being lenient is already giving him a lot of face. Elder Yu didn't take this matter to heart. In fact, even if he had some thoughts, what could he do? Yi Chen was a dragon god envoy, and his status was even higher than great elders. Soon, the two arrived at Dragon God Celestial Palace's treasury. The management of the treasure vault was very strict. Even Elder Yu needed the Grand Elder's permission to enter. Entering the treasury, Yi Chen saw an astonishing number of artifacts. The treasury had a total of 4 floors. The first floor had low-grade artifacts, the second floor had mid-grade artifacts, and the third floor had upper-grade artifacts. The fourth floor didn't have any extreme-grade artifacts, and only had 7-8 semi-extreme-grade artifacts, as well as a few special upper-grade artifacts. You don't lack semi-extreme-grade artifacts. This time, I brought you here to let you choose a chariot upper-grade artifact. Elder, you brought Yi Chen to a few chariots? Chariot? Sizing up the chariots before him, Yi Chen was somewhat astonished. This was the first time he had seen a chariot artifact. Elder Yu said, ordinary sects compete in numbers and experts. However, 5th grade sects compete not only in numbers and experts, but also in other things. This chariot artifact was very popular in ancient times. A chariot can hold dozens of people, and if driven by Zhen Yuan, a protective cover will appear around the chariot, allowing the user to charge out. Of course, small-scale battles usually don't use chariots. I'm letting you choose a chariot just in case. Yi Chen's reputation as a Dragon God envoy wasn't undeserved. If possible, Dragon God Celestial Palace would satisfy Yi Chen. Unfortunately, Yi Chen's battle strength was too high, and he didn't lack anything. Even a 5th grade sect couldn't give him too many useful things. Even if they gave him an extreme grade artifact, Yi Chen wouldn't be able to use it. Which one? Elder Yu asked. Without much hesitation, Yi Chen said, I'll take this one. Elder Yu followed Yi Chen's gaze and praised, good eyesight. This chariot is the best one, and the material is also very hard. The chariot Yi Chen had chosen was a dragon-headed chariot. The entire chariot was 10 meters long and 4 meters wide, with a total of 4 wheels. The wheels were covered with arm-thick spikes, engraved with golden-veined patterns. One could easily imagine how many people would be crushed to death by the wheels of the chariot. The bottom of the chariot and its surroundings were coiled by a huge golden dragon. The dragon's head was at the front of the chariot, and its mouth was tightly shut as if it could open at any time. The dragon's eyes were 2 huge red gems, giving off a cold, merciless, and bloody aura. Elder Yu said, this chariot is called Golden Dragon Chariot. Under the activation of Zhen Yuan, the dragon's head can open and spurt out blazing flames. Of course, you don't have to pour your Zhenyuan. You can let others do it. Letting Yi Chen pour his Zhenyuan would be a waste of Yi Chen's Zhenyuan. It should be known that any casual attack of Yi Chen's was terrifying beyond belief. Chapter 674. Although the Golden Dragon War Chariot was only an upper-grade war chariot artifact, its effect far surpassed other semi-extreme grade artifacts. Just think about it, inside the war chariot was equivalent to having an extra layer of protection. Moreover, it was not just one person but dozens of people. On the battlefield, an extra layer of protection was equivalent to an extra life, greatly increasing the chances of survival and the number of enemies they could kill. Not to mention ordinary experts, even an expert at the level of Yi Chen couldn't ignore the attacks of dozens of people. If he tried to resist, he would be courting death. Putting away the Golden Dragon War Chariot, the two left the treasury. Dragon God Envoy, we can set off in 3 days. At that time, there will be several core disciples and dozens of inner sect disciples following you. If possible, try to protect 1 or 2. Elder Yu was very clear about how frightening Yi Chen, who had defeated Li Feng with a single finger, was. Even the Great Elder had said that Yi Chen's strength was not below his. With Yi Chen's protection, surviving 1 or 2 shouldn't be a problem. I'll try my best. Yi Chen nodded. Just try your best. This is a bottle of upper cleansing pellet. It can rapidly restore your Zhenyuan with minimal side effects. Great Elder asked me to give it to you. Elder Yu took out a deep blue bottle from his storage ring and handed it over to Yi Chen. Taking over the bottle, Yi Chen opened the stopper and put his nose close to it. All of a sudden, an aroma that could make Zhenyuan boil filled his nostrils. This was a bottle of semi-extreme rank pellets, which had very little side effects. In the market, pellets of this rank could not be sold at all. Only rank 5 martial schools would have them. Even then, they would only have a limited supply, which was extremely rare. Good pellet. Yi Chen put it away without any trace of politeness. 3 days later, early morning, Yi Chen arrived at the departure point, a majestic palace. On the roof of the palace, there was a statue of a flying dragon, which looked majestic and majestic. This hall was the teleportation hall, and it was connected to the 5 halls. Of course, unless it was a special situation, it was rare to see a single hall being teleported. After all, the teleportation stone door consumed top-grade spirit stones. Top-grade spirit stones were very precious even in a rank 5 martial school, and 1 used meant 1 less. Normally, only a certain number of people would be able to teleport. Entering the palace, Yi Chen saw 5 conveyor gates in front of him. These 5 conveyor gates were much larger than ordinary ones. They were 10 meters wide and 20 meters tall, and could instantly transport dozens to 100 people. On the left side of the first conveyor gate were all the members of Elders Association. On the right side were a dozen young disciples of Dragon God's Celestial Palace. Among them was the 5th disciple, Chen Yusen, Dragon God Envoy. The first elder nodded. Yi Chen asked, "Are we leaving now?" "If there's nothing else, Dragon God Envoy, we can set off now." "In that case, let's go." "All right." The first elder cleared his throat and said to Chen Yusen and the other disciples, "This operation will be led by Dragon God Envoy. You have to listen to him. If you don't, you'll be punished according to sect rules. Let's go together now." The conveyor gate was very wide. Dozens of people walking side by side didn't feel crowded at all. At the moment of teleportation, the first elder's voice reached Yi Chen's ears. "Dragon God Envoy, I'll leave everything to you." Yi Chen's figure was already halfway into the whirlpool, and his faintly discernible voice came back. "Don't worry, wait for the good news." Buzz. The whirlpool fiercely revolved, and the figures of Yi Chen and the others completely disappeared. Outside the conveyor gate, Elder Yu sighed, "I hope they can return safely. Even if they fail, it doesn't matter." Don't say such depressing words. If they fail, the chances of them returning safely are very small. We can only wish them success. That's right, success is imminent. Not only did the teleportation gate in the teleportation hall look different from ordinary teleportation gates, but the details of teleportation were also different. Teleportation through ordinary teleportation gates was like entering a colorful passageway. Teleportation through the teleportation hall's teleportation gate was the same. However, the person being teleported through was enveloped in a bubble of primal chaos. Inside the bubble, the person could freely speak. Senior brother Yi, this is my eldest senior brother Lin Songhai, and this is 8th junior brother Luo Yunsong. Qin Yusin introduced the two core disciples to Yi Qin. The one on the right had ordinary looks, but he was very young, looking gentle and elegant. The one on the left was much colder, expressionless, and a pair of cold star-like eyes flickered with a cold light, like two rays of sword qi, extremely aggressive, giving people a feeling that their sharpness was too strong, and they couldn't suppress it no matter what. Senior brother Yi. The gentle Luo Yunsong nodded toward Yi Qin. He had already heard about Yi Qin defeating second senior brother Li Feng, and he admired Yi Qin a lot. Now that Yi Qin was already the Dragon God envoy of Dragon God Celestial Palace, and was about to become the deputy of Azure Dragon Hall, calling Yi Qin senior brother Yi couldn't be more normal. Junior brother Luo. Yi Qin returned the greeting with a faint smile. Yi Qin. Lin Songhai raised his eyelids and looked at Yi Qin. He didn't call Yi Qin senior brother Yi. As the head disciple of Dragon God Celestial Palace, it was impossible for him to call someone else senior brother, even if Yi Qin's position was higher than his. Qin Yusin and Luo Yunsong both felt that this was normal, and so did Yi Qin. Otherwise, he wouldn't be used to being called senior brother. After all, Luo Yunsong and Qin Yusin were about the same age as him. On the other hand, Lin Songhai was much older than him, and was about the same age as the top 5 young tycoons. Yi Qin looked at Lin Songhai. Li Feng's skill is not good enough. I've let you see a joke. Lin Songhai's tone changed as he said, however, as his senior brother, I have to seek justice for him. Of course, I won't act rashly. With my style, I won't do such a reckless thing. Therefore, you can rest assured that I won't look for trouble with you. It's best if you think like this. Yi Qin knew a few things about Lin Songhai. If he was the sword master of True Spirit Continent, then Lin Songhai was one of the strongest candidates for the sword master of Eastern Shallow Ocean. Among sword artists, no one could compare to him. Lin Songhai continued, however, on the battlefield, I personally won't listen to orders. Moreover, Li Feng's justice cannot be denied. How about this? We'll decide based on the number of kills. Whoever kills more will have the right to speak. Do you dare to compete with me? Competing based on the number of kills? Yi Qin faintly smiled and said non-committally, I don't care whether you listen or not, but if it affects others, even if you're the head disciple, I have the right to arrest you. I hope you understand this point. As for the number of kills, you can compete if you want. I don't care. So, you agree? Lin Songhai faintly creased his brows. Yi Qin's attitude made him somewhat dissatisfied. It seemed like the latter didn't take this matter too seriously. Let's just say so. Yi Qin didn't want to argue on this matter. Head disciple wants to compete with senior brother Yi on the number of kills. Qin Yusin and Luo Yunsong exchanged glances. They were somewhat looking forward to the scene. It would certainly be a shocking and spectacular sight. As for who would win and who would lose, they had no idea. Chapter 675. The Eastern Shallow Ocean was vast, almost 1/5 of True Spirit Continent. Dragon God Celestial Palace was the most powerful force in the Eastern Shallow Ocean, so its territory was naturally the largest as well. Teleporting from the teleportation hall to the Azure Dragon Hall couldn't be done in an instant. A certain amount of time was required. On a huge island 15 million li away from the Dragon God Celestial Palace, towering buildings rose and fell one after another. These buildings were mostly cyan-colored. Looking down from the sky, they looked like the scales of an azure dragon, reflecting a unique radiance under the sunlight. All the buildings gathered together, looking like a coiling azure dragon. This island was called Azure Dragon Island, and the force on the island was precisely the head of the Dragon God Celestial Palace's 5 great halls, Azure Dragon Hall. Inside a palace in the core region of Azure Dragon Hall, the remaining 2 deputy leaders were waiting, accompanied by dozens of great attendants. Apart from the leader, all the higher-ups of Azure Dragon Hall had arrived. waiting for the new deputy leader of Dragon God's Celestial Palace. They knew that this new deputy leader was certainly not ordinary, and might even be a hidden expert of Dragon God's Celestial Palace. Therefore, they had to cooperate and give him sufficient attention. Brother Wu, who do you think the higher-ups will send this time? One of the deputy leaders asked the deputy next to him. The deputy surnamed Wu analyzed. Strength too low, not enough to convince the masses. Strength too high, not many. Could it be the eldest core disciple Lin Songhai or the second disciple Li Feng? Lin Songhai's strength is enough, but one can't rely on personal strength in war. One must have a certain level of leadership. In this aspect, Lin Songhai is quite unique. As for Li Feng, honestly speaking, although he looks amiable on the surface, he's actually quite arrogant and condescending. If these two are impossible, then it should be an expert we don't know about. I think so too. They're coming. As the two spoke, the teleportation gate at the center of the palace lit up. Along with a whirlpool of light, dozens of figures appeared. Seeing the dozens of people in front of them, it would be impossible for them not to be astonished. They had thought of everything, except for the fact that they were all youngsters. The oldest among them was Lin Songhai, who seemed to be in his 30s. Lin Songhai, congratulations. Stunned for a moment, Vice Palace Master Wu revealed a smile. Although Lin Songhai was a loner and wasn't suitable to be a Vice Palace Master, since it was the will of the Elders Guild, they naturally wouldn't oppose it. Furthermore, leadership ability could be cultivated. Perhaps Lin Songhai would be able to adapt to the position of Vice Palace Master. Lin Songhai, we will be colleagues from now on. The other Vice Palace Master said with a smile. Lin Songhai was somewhat baffled by the two's words, but he was after all a perceptive person, and quickly understood, saying indifferently, I'm not. Chen Yusen hurriedly came to the rescue and said, You two have misunderstood. This is senior brother Yi Chen, who is about to take over as Vice Hall Master. This one is? The two Vice Hall Masters were a little embarrassed. In fact, they couldn't be blamed. They were used to being prejudiced by first impressions. Coupled with the fact that they were all young people, they subconsciously ignored Yi Chen, who looked the youngest, and regarded Lin Songhai as the leader of the group of young people. After all, they only had time to glance at everyone's appearance. This one is Yi Chen. Yi Chen said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. The two's gazes converged on Yi Chen's body, inwardly saying, so young. Although Yi Chen was already 26 years old, due to his rapid cultivation base advancement, he had entered Astral Reaching Realm only a year later than Xianhou, and entered Sea of Soul Realm a year earlier than Xianhou. Therefore, he still looked to be in his early 20s. If one overlooked his aura, they would easily see him as a young genius who had just left home. However, they clearly wouldn't overlook Yi Chen's aura. If Lin Songhai was an unsheathed treasured sword, then Yi Chen was a peerless sword half unsheathed. He had a sharp edge, but was not overly ostentatious, giving off an unfathomable feeling. Good fellow. The two had been fighting with the experts of the four great forces for many years, so they were quite good at judging people. Lin Songhai's sharpness had indeed startled them, but Yi Chen's unfathomability made them even more apprehensive. This one is Wu Chuan, and this is Su Danian. The Vice Hall Master surnamed Wu introduced himself. Yi Chen faintly nodded and said, We're already aware of Azure Dragon Hall's situation. This time, we've come to settle this matter. Now, take us to Hall Master Wei Longtao. His Vice Hall Master's command token needed to be taken from the latter's hands. Otherwise, it wouldn't be justifiable. Alright, come with me. Wu Chuan and Su Danian turned around and led Yi Chen and the rest out. Passing through the crowd, Yi Chen saw Yao Yifeng, who was the head attendant. However, Yao Yifeng's eyelids were drooping, pretending not to see Yi Chen. At this moment, Yao Yifeng's mind was in chaos as he mumbled to himself, How can it be him? How could he have become a Vice Hall Master? It's been less than 2 years, he can't possibly have the strength of a Vice Hall Master. Azure Dragon Hall's Vice Hall Master is already not much weaker than Yellow Dragon Hall's Zhang Jingguang. His strength is definitely not that high. Sending him here is probably another trick from above, wanting him to temper himself. After Yao Yifeng arrived at Azure Dragon Hall, he was no longer clear about the matters of true spirit continent, nor did he know about Yi Chen's achievements in the past 2 years. Therefore, he believed that even if Yi Chen's strength had increased by a lot, it would still be impossible for him to reach the level of Azure Dragon Hall's Vice Hall Master. It should be known that Azure Dragon Hall was the head of the 5 great halls, and its average battle strength was much higher than the other 4 halls. Moreover, Yellow Dragon Hall was publicly acknowledged as the weakest. Only after Yi Chen walked out of the hall did Yao Yifeng raise his eyelids and coldly glanced at Yi Chen. The Azure Dragon Hall Master was a serious-looking middle-aged man. He wore a light green robe with an azure dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws embroidered on it. On his right thumb, there was an emerald green thumb ring. This thumb ring was extremely large, about the size of a wine cup. "Greetings, Hall Master Wei." Yi Chen, Lin Songhai, and the rest spoke. Wei Longtao sized up Yi Chen with a doubtful gaze. He had already recognized Yi Chen as the genius favored by Palace Master Dragon King. However, the latter's cultivation base was merely at the peak of mid-sea of Soul Realm. Even if his aura seemed a bit deep and immeasurable, he shouldn't be able to suppress Lin Songhai and become the person in charge this time. As for the matters of true spirit continent, he had long since stopped caring about them. Being able to recognize Yi Chen at a glance meant that he was paying enough attention. "This is your Vice Hall Master's command token." Wei Longtao didn't say anything else and took out a little Azure Dragon command token from his storage ring. He exerted a bit of force and threw it toward Yi Chen. Receiving the little Azure Dragon command token, Yi Chen casually glanced at it before putting it away in his storage ring. Wei Longtao then said, "Lin Songhai, Chen Yusen, Luo Yunsong, I appoint you 3 as head attendants. You'll listen to Yi Chen's command. The rest will all be battle attendants, also under Yi Chen's command." The position of head attendants in Azure Dragon Hall was second only to the Vice Hall Master, and battle attendants were usually Sea of Soul Realm Taoists. Although only Yi Chen's group of 4 had Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, and the rest were late astral reaching realm, the disciples of Dragon God Celestial Palace couldn't be compared to ordinary members of Azure Dragon Hall. Giving them the status of battle attendants wasn't excessive. In any case, they were only here to temper themselves and wouldn't stay for long. Yes, Lin Songhai, Chen Yusen, and the rest didn't have any objections. Hall Master Wei, deputy whose troops were almost completely annihilated. Only a dozen or so people remain. I'll need to reorganize them. Yi Chen said, "You don't need to worry about this. The new troops have already been gathered. Altogether, 350 people, 40 Sea of Soul Realm and 310 Astral Reaching Realm. You can rest for today. Tomorrow, I'll send someone to tell them to wait at the drill ground. You can get to know them then." "All right, then Yi Chen will take his leave first." Yi Chen's group left. Once Yi Chen and the rest left, Wei Longtao creased his brows. Could it be that the higher-ups think that sending 1 Yi Chen and 3 core disciples can solve the problem? He didn't understand. The next day, in the morning, on the east side of the drill ground, 350 people were gathered. Standing at the front were 40 people, all of whom had Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. Among them, there were even 4 late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, consisting of 1 woman and 3 men. "Hey, what kind of person do you think the new deputy is?" A middle-aged woman with an enchanting figure stretched her back and chuckled. The robust man beside the middle-aged woman said, "It'd be best if he's stronger than us. Otherwise, I won't accept it." "Hee, you can rest assured. The higher-ups can't possibly send someone weaker than you. At the very least, he should be at the same level as Deputy Hu. No, he should be much stronger than Deputy Hu. Otherwise, there would be no need for the higher-ups to send someone. They could just directly pick someone from the Azure Dragon Hall." The middle-aged scholar with a long beard shook his head. The middle-aged woman guessed, "Perhaps there's a traitor in the upper echelons of the Azure Dragon Hall. That's why the higher-ups personally sent someone." Hee, you'll all be disappointed. I know the new deputy. He's not as strong as you think. Moreover, he's a bit selfish and doesn't care about consequences." The last of the 4 said, "You know him?" Yao Yifeng. The middle-aged woman revealed an astonished expression. Yao Yifeng was about to speak, but suddenly shut his mouth. In his line of sight, the blue-robed Yi Chen was leading a group of Dragon God's Celestial Palace disciples. Lin Songhai wasn't among them. Senior brother Yi, eldest senior brother, is just like this. Don't mind him too much. Qin Yusin was still explaining Lin Songhai's actions. Yi Chen said, "You don't need to worry. I've already said that he can disobey my orders as long as it doesn't affect others." Yi Chen's objective this time was to help Azure Dragon Hall salvage the situation. Whether Lin Songhai listened or not had nothing to do with him, and he couldn't be bothered to care. In any case, it didn't matter if Lin Songhai's strength was no weaker than the second elders. Of course, if they suffered losses because of him, he couldn't be blamed. Chapter 676. This is the new deputy? Including the middle-aged woman, everyone was flabbergasted. No matter how one looked at him, he looked like he was in his early 20s. His real age should be around 26 or 27. Such a young man was unexpectedly the newly appointed deputy, which somewhat caught them off guard. What the hell are the higher-ups doing? Sending a brat over? His cultivation base is not bad, but it's not at the level of deputy. Letting a brat lead us will only lead us to a quick death. Even if I offend him, I'll make him understand. Let's observe the situation first. Perhaps there's a mistake. Everyone discussed spiritedly through Zhen Yuan transmission. Yao Yifeng sneered, waiting for Yi Chen to make a fool of himself. This was not the headquarters, where everyone was thinking about how to preserve their lives. A deputy who wasn't strong enough wouldn't be able to obtain everyone's support. If Yi Chen didn't display sufficient strength, he wouldn't be able to sit firmly in his position, even if he was sent by the higher-ups. The drill ground was huge, and a gale was blowing fiercely. Yi Chen walked 30 steps in front of the crowd and stopped. Qin Yusin and the rest consciously moved to the side, forming the second camp. Slightly raising his head, Yi Chen's gaze swept around. When he passed by Yao Yifeng, he didn't deliberately stop, letting nature take its course. This formation was not bad. Not counting Qin Yusin and the rest, among the 40 Sea of Soul Realm experts, 4 had late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, 15 had mid Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, and 21 had early Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. Such a powerful force had already surpassed peak 6th grade sections. Any 6th grade sect would not be their opponent, and they would be able to sweep through them. I'm called Yi Chen, the new deputy. I believe you have a lot to say, so say it now. I won't look into your words and deeds, but if you don't speak now, don't blame me for being ruthless in the future. Yi Chen knew that his prestige was still not enough, and these people would definitely not listen to him. Therefore, he had to solve this problem once and for all, in case something went wrong in the future. With his power, if he could not even solve this problem, then he could just leave. Everyone looked at each other. They did not expect Yi Chen to be so straightforward. The middle-aged woman cleared her throat and said, "Deputy Palace Lord Yi, I'm Xing Meiyan. I'd like to ask, how old are you?" 26. Yi Chen replied. So young. Although they didn't want to accept Yi Chen as the deputy, Yi Chen's talent was enough to make them sigh in admiration. After all, having a cultivation base at the peak of mid-sea of Soul Realm at the age of 26 was simply unheard of in the eastern shallow ocean. It was no wonder that the higher-ups had sent him. Unfortunately, they were all people who lived on the edge of a blade. How to live longer was what they should think about, and not the talent of others. With all due respect, you are too young. You may not be able to lead us to success. Yi Chen was, after all, a deputy sent by the higher-ups. Therefore, the person who spoke had to weigh his words as much as possible. He didn't directly mention that Yi Chen's strength was insufficient, but rather his leadership ability. At the very least, it would look better on his face. The corner of Yi Chen's mouth curved. With all due respect, age is not a problem. Only mediocre people lack confidence because of age. I have never lacked confidence. Relying on confidence alone is not enough. Xing Meiyan continued the other's words. Yi Chen shook his head. I'm sorry, but I can't give you a satisfactory answer at the moment. A leader's ability can only be displayed in battle. Now, you'd better speak your mind. If you don't, you won't have another chance. Senior Brother Yi is indeed Senior Brother Yi. His words are watertight, and nobody can find any flaws. Among the people of the same generation as Qin Yusen, no one could compare to Yi Qin. He didn't need to rely on his aura to suppress others, nor did he need to rely on his status. He relied on his calm mind and watertight words. Is this brat really only 26 years old? Xing Meiyan stared at Yi Chen with a strange expression. She had to admit that Yi Chen was gradually gaining the initiative. However, this alone wasn't enough. The key was whether he had the strength or not. Without strength, it was all nonsense. The muscular man beside Xing Meiyan couldn't help but say, as a deputy of the Azure Dragon Hall, other than leadership ability, you must also have personal strength. I hope you understand this point. Yi Chen asked back, then what kind of strength do you think is needed to reach the standard? The muscular man was stunned for a moment before he said, the previous deputy could defeat me in 3 moves. Now that he's dead, you need to defeat me in at least 2 moves. The muscular man wasn't purposely making things difficult for Yi Chen. Previously, when he fought with Deputy Hu, it was just a sparring session. Otherwise, 1 or 2 moves would have been enough to defeat him. Now, he wanted Yi Chen to defeat him in 2 moves, which had already reduced the difficulty by a lot. Sure, you make the first move. Yi Chen was already prepared for this. In the end, the only thing that everyone was worried about was that he wasn't strong enough. This was what they wanted to say. Be careful. The muscular man's weapon was a giant axe. He slowly walked out of the group and stood 20 steps in front of Yi Chen. With a low roar, his body was like a small mountain pressing down on Yi Chen. The violent wind was enough to flatten a large building. When he was 10 steps away from Yi Chen, he raised his giant axe and chopped down. The dark yellow axe aura formed an arc because of its extreme speed. Shaking his head, Yi Chen pointed his finger. Arrogant. Too arrogant. Seeing Yi Chen fighting with only 1 finger, everyone frowned. Yao Yifeng even sneered. This muscular man was called Jiang Hanliang. Although he was weaker than him, he wasn't that much weaker. Plus, his weapon was a giant axe, which had a powerful attack power. Even if an expert at the same level used a weapon, they might not be able to win, not to mention a finger. Only Qin Yusen was not surprised. She had seen Yi Chen defeat her second senior brother Li Feng with only 1 finger. Jiang Hanliang was obviously angrier. He pushed his strength to the limit and chopped out with his axe. The wind and clouds changed. Lose. The axe soon arrived in front of Yi Chen. Yi Chen's finger and the axe aura collided. Shockingly, this indestructible axe aura immediately fell apart when it came into contact with Yi Chen's finger. It was as fragile as tofu. Then, the tip of his finger touched the giant axe's blade. The axe's blade quickly twisted and curled, making a teeth-aching metal sound. Bang! Finally, Jiang Hanliang could no longer hold the giant axe. His hand loosened, and the axe flew out, smashing a huge pit in the drill ground. As for Jiang Hanliang himself, he was 1 step slower than the giant axe. He was also sent flying, crashing into the crowd. How did he get here, and how did he go back? I wonder if you guys are satisfied with my strength. Since they didn't have enough prestige, Yi Chen needed to teach them a lesson. He was glad that someone came to find trouble with him. I'm not talented, but I'm here to learn from you. The middle-aged scholar on Xing Meiyan's right walked out. Yi Chen's strength was actually no weaker than Vice Leader Hu. However, it was still not enough. One had to know that Vice Leader Hu had died under the siege of the 4 major forces. What was the point of sending someone with strength similar to Vice Leader Hu? Speed and Qin Gong are my advantages. The middle-aged scholar reminded Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded. Be careful, 100 changes of gale. The middle-aged scholar mainly cultivated the wind profound, and his movement technique had fused with the wind profound. His entire body had already lost its form, leaving behind only a formless gale. The gale was everywhere, fiercely attacking Yi Chen from every direction. It seemed as if 100 phantoms were attacking Yi Chen. This time, he definitely won't be able to finish the battle in a few moves. Yao Yifeng thought. The middle-aged scholar was called Yan Quan. In terms of movement technique, There were very few people who could match him. Even the leader of the Azure Dragon Hall might not be able to beat him. It should be known that among all the martial arts, movement technique was the hardest to integrate into profound, not to mention Yan Quan, who had studied profound movement technique to such a degree. Yi Chen smiled lightly. He did not need to compete in speed. Of course, if he were to compete in speed, he would be 5 streets ahead of him. But that would still not be enough to convince the crowd. Therefore, he only wanted to compete in observation and accuracy. Without even looking, he put up his right index and middle finger and waved it in a slanted manner. Yan Quan seemed to have been knocked out of the void. Blood spurted out from the corner of his mouth. The clothes on his chest were torn, revealing the inner armor inside. With one finger, Yan Quan's qin gong was immediately broken. It was an understatement. The wind was gentle. Xing Meiyan sucked in a breath of cold air. She couldn't be any clearer about how powerful Yan Quan's movement technique was. There might be people in Azure Dragon Hall who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him, but there was absolutely no one who could surpass him. However, Yan Quan, who had such a high movement technique, couldn't even receive a single finger from Yi Chen. I accept it wholeheartedly. Yan Quan landed on the ground and said sincerely, "Good, who else doesn't accept it?" Yi Chen scanned around with his eyes. I'm convinced." After the shock, Xing Meiyan revealed an enticing smile. This was the first time she had seen such an outstanding youngster. He was only 26 years old, and his future path was bound to be glorious. If she could establish a relationship with him, even if she didn't have a meteoric rise, she would at least be taken care of. Why did they join the Azure Dragon Hall? It was to earn contribution points and obtain more resources. If she relied on herself, she could indeed obtain resources, but it might not be a lot, and it might not be what she wanted. However, Dragon God Celestial Palace was a peak 5th grade sect with abundant resources that ordinary people couldn't imagine. Whether she could advance further or not, she could only do so. Moreover, even if she didn't think for herself, she had to think for her family. Within the vast territory of Dragon God Celestial Palace, there were thousands of families, and their family was one of them. Damn it! How can this guy be so powerful? Yao Yifeng tightly clenched his fists. For the first time, he felt that the situation was out of his control. Slowly loosening his fists, an obscure cold light flickered in his eyes. Since that's the case, don't blame me. Deputy who will accompany you down there. Since no one speaks, it means there's no problem. However, I'll say the ugly words first. My orders must be obeyed by everyone. If you don't blame me for not giving you any face. Yi Chen's brows rose. His entire aura was like an unsheathed sword. The aura of destruction made everyone feel as if the end of the world had arrived. 10,000 swords pierced their bodies, making them feel numb. His strength is far more than this. Xing Meiyan held her breath. She realized that she had still underestimated Yi Chen. All right, who's willing to take me to understand the surrounding situation? Retracting his aura, Yi Chen asked. Xing Meiyan hesitated. Me? Yi Chen nodded his head. Everyone else, dismissed. He continued to apologize to everyone. Seeing the scolding in the comments section, Taishu also knew that he was in the wrong. He would like to say that the typhoon blew for 2 days, the electricity was cut off for 1 day, and the internet was cut off for 2.5 days. Originally, he was ready to erupt, but in the end, it was messed up, causing his passion to slowly fade away. He was depressed and in a bad state of mind. Hence, 2 days after the typhoon, he stopped updating. Taishu dared to say that none of the reasons he gave in the past were fake. Without a reason, Taishu would irresponsibly stop updating. This was what Taishu felt guilty about. Everyone can scold Taishu for updating rubbish, but please don't scold liars. Because Taishu had never done that before. No matter what, if you did something wrong, you have to bear the consequences. Hence, Taishu would like to apologize to everyone. Also, because he had previously released a single chapter, Taishu could not avoid breaking the chapters. However, Taishu would try his best to write more when he could, so that the total word count wouldn't be too low after a month. Taishu had said that he would make up for the missing chapters. Today, he was starting to feel that way. With 2 chapters per day, there should be 60 chapters per month. From this month onwards, Taishu will strive to update 55 chapters per month. No one would treat a typhoon as a joke, so please don't think that Taishu was joking. This was a joke that Taishu could not afford to make. Finally, I would like to thank all my brothers and sisters for their support and understanding. Taishu was indeed unreliable at times, but Taishu always wanted to write well and write more. But this book, how should I put it? There were too many ideas. Sometimes, just for a name, it would take half a day to think about it. In order to be unique, it would take a lot of brain power. Of course, Taishu could understand the feelings of his brothers and sisters. Waiting for more chapters was not easy either. After saying so much nonsense, it was quite mentally taxing. Let's just leave it at that. I can't help but thank them again. I realize that I don't know how lucky I am. Chapter 677. Azure Dragon Hall was the first line of defense against the 4 hostile forces. Black Dragon Hall was 5 million li to the left, and Red Dragon Hall was 7 million li to the right. They could be considered the second line of defense. White Dragon Hall was in the middle of the 3 halls and Dragon God's Celestial Palace, the last line of defense. Usually, it would provide support to the 3 halls. In front of Azure Dragon Hall, there were 3 scout islands every 100,000 li. These 3 islands were arranged in a fan shape and were quite far from each other. Generally speaking, a scout island would have 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts overseeing it and 20 astral reaching experts. They didn't need to do anything other than patrolling twice a day. The rest of the time would be spent either cultivating or searching for nearby resources. After all, the ocean had always been rich in resources, some of which couldn't be found on the continent. Moreover, they would receive a bountiful amount of spirit stones and medicinal pellets every month. 100,000 li had 3 scout islands, and 300,000 li would make 9, all of which were located in the periphery of Blood Battle Ocean. Blood Battle Ocean was located at the border of Dragon God's Celestial Palace and the 4 hostile forces. From east to west, it was more than 23 million li, and from south to north, it was more than 4 million li. Blood Battle Ocean could be said to be the place with the richest resources in the eastern shallow ocean. There were thousands of large islands, hundreds of thousands of medium islands, and innumerable small islands, comparable to the stars in the sky. Blood Battle Ocean has already discovered more than 3,000 spirit veins. 1,000 are under our Dragon God's Celestial Palace's control, while the other 2,000 have been divided among the 4 hostile forces. Xing Meilian led Yi Chen as they flew around the periphery of Blood Battle Ocean and introduced 1,000. Yi Chen inwardly clicked his tongue. He didn't think that all of them were low-grade spirit veins. There were surely mid-grade spirit veins, and even upper-grade ones. Xing Meilian saw Yi Chen's expression and explained, 1,000 sounds like a lot, but it's actually not much compared to the Dragon God's Celestial Palace. My Dragon God's Celestial Palace has a population of 1,200,000. Among them, 500,000 are at the Qi Condensation Realm, 350,000 are at the Condensing Reality Realm, 150,000 are at the Clasping Yuan Realm, 30,000 are at the Astral Reaching Realm, and 2,000 are at the Sea of Soul Realm. Once a warrior reached the Condensing Reality Realm, he would need soul stones to train. Even if one person needed 100 low-rank soul stones a year, just the Condensing Reality Realm warriors would need 35 million low-rank soul stones. Adding the Clasping Yuan Realm warriors, it would need at least 300 million, maybe even 500 million. At the Astral Reaching Realm, one would need mid-grade spirit stones for cultivation, and the consumption would be more than 10 million. In fact, mid-grade spirit stones were the most insufficient, because at this level, one would have to pay them a salary, ranging from 100 per month to a few thousand per month. Adding it all up, it would be more than 1 or 200 million. If they already have so many in 1 year, then after 10 years, the amount of spirit stones consumed would be terrifying. Furthermore, it's impossible for a sect to not have a large reserve of spirit stones. Generally speaking, it's normal for a sect to have 50 years' worth of spirit stones, especially for a 5th grade sect. Yi Chen faintly nodded. He already had a good understanding of Dragon God's celestial palace. The difference between a 5th grade sect and a 6th grade sect was like the difference between Life and Death Realm and Sea of Soul Realm. Although it seemed like a difference of 1 grade, it was actually like the difference between heaven and earth. On the other hand, the difference between a 6th grade sect and a lower grade sect was like the difference between Sea of Soul Realm and Astral Reaching Realm. Take Yi family for example. Because of Yi Chen, many people had joined Yi family. At present, Yi family had 5,000 Qi Realm disciples, 2,000 Condensing Reality Realm disciples, several hundred Clasping Yuan Realm disciples, and only a few Astral Reaching Realm disciples. It was simply incomparable to a 5th grade sect, and the amount of spirit stones consumed was also incomparable. It was like a drop in the ocean. Although having a big family business was glorious, its burden was also huge. It was easy for problems to arise, and the biggest problem was the problem of resources. As one of the top 5th grade sects, the burden of Dragon God's celestial palace was needless to say. Xing Meiyan continued, in the past, among these 3,000 spirit veins, my Dragon God's celestial palace occupied 1,200. But in the past few years, 200 veins have been seized by the 4 hostile forces. The 2 passed by many islands on the way. On these islands, one could often see the mining workers of Dragon God's celestial palace. Dragon God's celestial palace and the 4 hostile forces had an agreement that the mining workers on the islands were not to be harmed. They were only mining resources, and it wouldn't affect either side. In the distance, the 2 saw a huge island. It was extremely barren, with strange rocks everywhere. The surface of the rocks had a faint metallic luster. Xing Meiyan said, this island is rich in black-veined iron, which can be smelted into black-veined iron. It's one of the best metals for forging top-notch weapons, and 1,000 gene of black-veined iron can be refined into 1 gene of black-veined iron. Black-veined iron is a kind of material for forging low-grade artifacts. It's extremely precious. My Dragon God's celestial palace has artifact forgers who forge a large number of artifacts for the palace every year. A portion is left in the palace, and the rest is sold for spirit stones. This is also one of the income of a 5th grade sect. Artifact forgers? This was the first time Yi Chen had heard of this title. Xing Meiyan brushed the hair on her forehead and said with a smile, in ancient times, there were many ways to forge artifacts. But now, most of them have been lost. Only a small portion of 5th grade sects have them, and my Dragon God's celestial palace is one of them. Otherwise, how could there be so many artifacts in the continent and the 4 shallow oceans? You should know that artifacts also have their own durability. Artifacts from too long ago simply can't be passed down. You're right. Yi Chen's knowledge had been broadened. Selling artifacts can be said to be one of the biggest sources of income, second only to mining spirit veins. Therefore, the value of some rare metals is not below spirit stones. Some metals that can be used to forge upper-grade artifacts are even more valuable than upper-grade spirit stones of the same weight. Look, this island is rich in scarlet fire iron ores. Scarlet fire iron is even more valuable than black-veined iron. The refined scarlet fire iron contains fire-attributed energy, which can increase the offensive and fire attack of artifacts. Unfortunately, only 10,000 gene of scarlet fire iron can be refined into 1 gene of scarlet fire iron. In the past, Yi Chen only knew that the most important resources were spirit stones, pellets, or herbs. But now, he knew that apart from spirit stones and pellets, rare metals were also precious resources. Perhaps ordinary sects wouldn't be able to use them, but they could be sold to 5th grade sections. Apart from rare metals, gems were also a kind of resource. Some gems contained powerful energy and could be used as spirit stones, or embedded in artifacts to increase offensive or defensive power. In short, there were all kinds of resources. The higher the grade of a sect, the more resources they required, and the more complex they were. Up ahead is the edge of the Blood Battle Ocean's core region. We might run into a large number of hostile forces. It's best not to go too deep. After traveling for 200,000 li, Xing Meiyan looked around and said to Yi Chen with a hesitant expression, "It's all right. You continue to take me around. I don't know much about the Blood Battle Ocean situation and the resources occupied by Dragon God's Celestial Palace. It's necessary to clarify." As the deputy of Azure Dragon Hall, if he didn't know the resources occupied by Dragon God's Celestial Palace, he wouldn't be qualified. As for encountering hostile forces, even if he couldn't win, he could easily escape. Moreover, without a certain number of people, it was hard to say who would kill who. This? Xing Meiyan regretted inwardly. Had she known earlier that Yi Chen was so curious, she wouldn't have volunteered. It should be known that the Blood Battle Ocean was different from other places. Either they didn't run into any enemies, or if they did, it would be in groups of at least dozens. Moreover, there were only 2 of them. Once they were surrounded, they wouldn't be able to escape. When the earth-shattering attacks arrived, they would be blasted into pieces in an instant. If I say it's all right, then it's all right. Don't worry. He had encountered several grave dangers, such as being chased by the 5 great experts in the Blood Demon battlefield, narrowly escaping with his life, and being chased by countless vicious beasts in the Bewilderment Fog Forbidden Zone. In comparison, as long as it wasn't a full-scale war, a small-scale war couldn't be considered dangerous. All right then. Let's agree if anything goes wrong, we'll immediately retreat. Xing Meiyan said helplessly. Yi Chen chuckled, "I value my life more than you do. That's true. Otherwise, you wouldn't have lived until now." Xing Meiyan herself could be considered a genius. Geniuses seem to have a dazzling halo, but the dangers geniuses encountered were not something ordinary people could imagine. Since they were geniuses, they had to think of every possible way to increase their strength. They couldn't just muddle through. Thus, some dangerous ruins couldn't lack the shadows of geniuses. In short, talent was important, opportunity was important, and tempering was equally important. Ahead is the Black Smoke Island, where all kinds of gems are dug up. Among them, the most famous are the Black Smoke Gem, Double Star Gem, and Fish Scale Gem. Because of this island, my Dragon God's Celestial Palace and the 4 great forces have engaged in dozens of battles in the past 2 years. Each time, many people died. Fortunately, this island is still under our control. Xing Meiyan didn't dare to relax too much. She released her soul power from time to time, scanning the surroundings. 500 to 600 li away, on an island, a group of experts with black octopus embroidered on their robes were entrenched here. With a rough glance, there were no less than 30 of them, 6 of them at Sea of Soul Realm, and 24 at Astral Reaching Realm. Head attendant. Suddenly, a figure flew toward the island. With a few flickers, he appeared at the center of the island. His face was filled with excitement, as if he had some good news. "What's the matter?" The fierce-looking man, who was resting, raised his head. Head attendant, there are 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts of Dragon God's Celestial Palace near the island. One is a beautiful woman, and the other is a young man. The newcomer promptly said, "Beautiful woman." The fierce-looking man grinned, revealing an ugly smile. He was the head attendant of Black King Gate. He had 2 hobbies, killing and beauties. Among beauties, the one he liked the most was the charming woman. This kind of woman was the most enjoyable to play with, not to mention a lone Sea of Soul Realm expert. "Did you send a spirit beast to track them?" the fierce-looking man asked. Of course. The spirit beast of Black King Gate was a black octopus. In fact, the sect leader was a black octopus that had cultivated into a beast king. Therefore, black octopuses were spirit beasts of Black King Gate. Once a black octopus advanced to Sea of Soul Realm, its status would be even higher than a human of the same realm. "Let's go. It's been a long time since I've killed someone." The fierce-looking man suddenly stood up, overflowing with killing intent. "Huh, 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts? Won't it be a piece of cake? We have 6 on our side." The others were also excited. Sea of Soul Realm experts were not cabbages. Killing one would be one less. When they returned to the sect, they would be rewarded handsomely. Chapter 678. The black smoke gem was a kind of translucent gem that emitted black chi. The double star gem had 2 energy cores, and was the one with the most abundant energy. As for the fish scale gem, it was just like its name, somewhat similar to a fish scale. This kind of gem could increase the defensive power of defensive armors. Unfortunately, the majority of the gems produced on this island were low-grade gems, with few mid-grade gems and almost no upper-grade gems. Even so, the Dragon God Celestial Palace and the 4 enemy forces still attached great importance to this place. After all, only with a large amount of gems could they forge even better artifacts, which could greatly increase the disciples' survivability. The higher the survivability, the higher the chances of breaking through to the next realm. This was a virtuous cycle. But on the island, Yichen gently smashed a huge boulder. Amidst the smoke and dust, a gem-emitting black chi fell down, sparkling brightly. Reaching out his hand, the gem landed on his hand. It was a bit prickly to the touch, not as smooth as its surface. Hee, your luck is not bad, being able to obtain a mid-grade black smoke gem so casually. Xing Meiyan tenderly laughed. Her plump waist and perfectly round buttocks twisted, looking exceptionally alluring. Yichen faintly smiled, but his brows suddenly creased. What's wrong? Xing Meiyan observed his expression and asked. Someone's coming. Don't tell me it's the enemy forces? Xing Meiyan's complexion changed. She tried her best to release her soul power, but the incoming people were too far away. More than 100 li, she couldn't detect them. Her Zhen Yuan suddenly circulated to the limit as she said to Yichen in a fluster. Still 100 li away, let's go quickly. Yichen shook his head and said, No rush, they don't have many people. You're not lying to me? For some reason, Xing Meiyan felt that his so-called not much and her own not much were vastly different. Even if I'm lying to you, we can't get rid of them. Yichen looked indifferent. Hearing these words, Xing Meiyan operated her Zhen Yuan and sharpened her eyesight to the limit. In her line of sight, there were 10 enemies in each of the 3 directions. Among the 10, there were 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts. The lowest cultivation base was mid-Sea of Soul Realm, while the highest was peak late Sea of Soul Realm. These people were only 100 li away from them and would arrive in 10 breaths' time. Moreover, their clothes were embroidered with black octopus patterns. It's the Black King Gate. Xing Meiyan's face was pale. The Black King sect was a mixed sect of black octopuses and humans. With the human experts of the Black King sect, there would basically be 9th grade or even 10th grade black octopuses. These black octopuses were not ordinary ones, but the royal race of black octopuses. They were commonly known as Black Kings, and the Black King sect was named after the royal race of black octopuses. 6 Sea of Soul Realm experts, 24 astral reaching experts, and an unknown number of 9th grade and 10th grade black octopuses. This was a very powerful force. The most infuriating thing was that Yichen didn't seem to care at all. They must have used the black octopuses as informants to figure out our whereabouts. Then, they circled behind us, making it impossible for us to escape according to our original path. If we flee forward, we'll only go deeper and deeper into the core of Blood Battle Ocean, and it'll be easier for us to encounter more enemies. Xing Meiyan looked at Yichen, wanting to hear his opinion. After all, the only person she could rely on was Yichen. Yichen said, how many contribution points would we get from killing 6 Sea of Soul Realm experts? Xing Meiyan didn't know what Yichen was thinking, so she replied, killing an astral reaching expert is 50 contribution points, Sea of Soul Realm expert is 1,000, Sea of Soul Realm expert is 3,000, and head attendant is 5,000. If my guess is correct, among these 6 Sea of Soul Realm experts, there's 1 head attendant, 2 battle attendants, and 3 ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts. Altogether, it's 14,000 contribution points, which can be exchanged for a peak upper grade offensive artifact and a defensive artifact. Of course, it can also be exchanged for other things. You're not thinking of killing them, are you? Xing Meiyan reacted and looked at Yichen in astonishment. How are we going to split it between 2 people? Yichen asked again. Xing Meiyan couldn't tell if Yichen was arrogant or just full of confidence. She said resentfully, Dragon God's celestial palace has a clear distribution. If the enemies are killed by everyone, the deputy's share is twice that of head attendant and 4 times that of battle attendants. In other words, you get 80% and I get 20%. 20% is also not a small amount. Yichen didn't explain much. His right hand reached toward his waist and grasped the Thunder Disaster Sword's hilt. Clang. The Thunder Disaster Sword was unsheathed, and like a deep blue lightning, it expanded and contracted indefinitely. The instant he unsheathed the sword, the nearest enemies were already less than 30 li away from them. Ha, you can't escape. One of the bald men laughed heartily. He wasn't in a hurry to attack, and his eyes revealed the expression of a cat toying with a mouse. The ones who can't escape are you. Holding the Thunder Disaster Sword in his right hand, Yichen casually waved it. All of a sudden, the sky in front of him darkened, and a black crescent sword chi swallowed the bald man and the 11 people behind him like a crack in the darkness that could devour all light, carrying an endless destruction intent. Puff! There was no blood splashing. These 12 people didn't even make a sound before directly disintegrating into ashes, leaving behind only a few upper-grade artifacts and 12 storage rings. As for the mid-grade artifacts held by the astral-reaching experts, they were all disintegrated just like their owners. One sword strike killed 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts and 8 astral-reaching experts. What? Xing Melian's face turned pale with fright. Before this, she already knew that Yi Chen's strength was extremely high and could instantly kill the majority of Sea of Soul Realm masters. However, killing 1 and killing 12 were 2 completely different concepts. Moreover, it was 30 li away. Xing Melian was astonished, but the remaining 20 people of the Black King sect were even more astonished. That bald man was a battle attendant of the Black King sect. From 30 li away, even some famous Sea of Soul Master Realm experts couldn't kill him in a second, let alone 10. Not good. Everyone, gather together and attack together. The fierce-looking man's face turned grave as he shouted. Shwa 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 shwa. Streams of light flickered as the remaining 2 groups converged. Below, 2 huge black octopuses shot up, their demonic power covering the sky and covering the sun. They were countless times more powerful than Sea of Soul Realm experts of the same level. Merely in terms of the energy they contained, even 10-peak Sea of Soul Realm experts might not be able to compare to a 10th-grade black octopus. 4 Sea of Soul Realm experts, 2 10th-grade black octopuses, and 16 astral-reaching experts. If they joined hands, it would be enough to kill the majority of Sea of Soul Realm masters. Even the top 5 young tycoons would have to temporarily avoid them. After all, that fierce-looking man was a great attendant, and the demonic power of the 2 10th-grade black octopuses was even more frightening. When they joined hands, their might could be easily imagined. However, Yichen didn't stop them from converging. Instead, he waited for them. We can't let them join hands. Xing Melian wasn't as calm as Yichen. She waved her hand, and her unique weapon, the Cold Moon Hook, shot out numerous arcs of light toward the opponents. She wanted to disrupt their formation and prevent them from joining hands. Pung 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 pung. Unfortunately, Xing Melian was a step too late. Before the arcs of light could approach the opponents, they were blocked by an invisible energy wall. This was a Zhen Yuan barrier jointly activated by the opponents. As soon as the arcs of light slashed down, ripples spread out, and the power dispersed. It didn't even have the qualifications to shake the Zhen Yuan barrier. Attack! The fierce-looking man waved his hand, and the 20 people and the 2 black octopuses launched a fierce attack at Yi Chen and Xing Melian. In the blink of an eye, the wind and clouds changed color, and waves surged. Yi Chen didn't retreat, and once again slashed out. This slash contained the destruction sword intent. Not only was its attack powerful, it was also exceptionally condensed and had a devouring effect. Puff puff. The opponent's first round of attacks exploded midway. Too powerful. Xing Melian admitted that she had no idea what level Yi Chen's strength had reached. Every time, she thought that this was the opponent's strongest battle power. However, reality told her that this was only an ordinary attack. No wonder he's so confident. Who's he? Xing Meilian was extremely curious about Yi Chen. She had never heard of such a frightening genius in the eastern shallow ocean. My turn. Raising the thunder disaster sword high up, black lightning gathered on the sword tip and gradually condensed into a black thunderball. After the destruction sword intent reached the 5th step, the color of the thunderball changed, becoming the same as the destruction sword spirit. Only Yi Chen knew that the nature of the thunder had changed, and it was now tainted with the destruction attribute. After all, the 5th step destruction sword intent was simply too powerful, and its power was equivalent to an ordinary 6th step sword intent. Full defense. The fierce-looking man had a bad premonition. The feeling that Yi Chen gave him was too dangerous. The Zhenyuan barrier turned from incorporeal to tangible, and like a sky curtain, it hung down vertically, protecting the fiendish man's group and the 2 black octopuses. Kacha. As Yi Chen's sword descended, the whole world turned black. There were no stars and no light. Only a black thunderball cut through the dark sky and heavily collided with the Zhenyuan barrier. In the next moment, a black brilliance erupted, and a huge black hole was formed. Pop! The Zhenyuan barrier vanished like smoke, and the thunderball exploded. Berserk black lightning surged out. The fiendish man and the others simply didn't have time to dodge, and could only passively endure the violent lightning strike. When the black lightning dissipated, the group completely disappeared. Only the upper-grade artifacts and storage rings remained intact, falling down. Of course, the defense of the 2 black octopuses was also exceedingly powerful. Although their vitality had dissipated, their bodies didn't disappear. They turned into 2 huge pieces of charcoal and fell into the seawater. Making a grabbing motion with his left hand, the slightly damaged upper-grade artifacts and storage rings flew toward Yi Chen. These people's storage rings had tokens representing their identities. Ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts had ordinary tokens, while battle attendants and head attendants had tokens. Only by obtaining these tokens would one be able to exchange them for contribution points. Chapter 679. On the side, Xing Meilian looked at Yi Chen as if she was looking at a monster. 30 people and 2 10th-grade black octopuses were like chickens and dogs in front of Yi Chen. They didn't even have the qualifications to struggle. Meanwhile, Yi Chen had a carefree and relaxed expression from beginning to end. The calmer he was, the more Xing Meilian felt that Yi Chen was frightening. Deputy Yi Chen's strength is no longer something I can guess. Could he have reached half-step king realm? Judging from his strength on the surface, he shouldn't have. But who knows what else he's hiding? Xing Meilian didn't know how powerful half-step kings were, just like how she didn't know how powerful Yi Chen was. However, in her eyes, Yi Chen was much more powerful than Sea of Soul Masters. Even if he wasn't as powerful as half-step kings, he wouldn't be too far off. With Yi Chen's strength being this powerful, Xing Meilian finally relaxed. As long as the number of enemies wasn't too excessive, there wouldn't be any danger. However, the 2 didn't encounter a second wave of enemies. In the evening, the 2 returned. The days in Azure Dragon Hall were very ordinary. However, this kind of peacefulness was usually only temporary. Once a battle broke out, it would be a life-and-death situation. Therefore, no one rejected this kind of peacefulness. They would rather live a peaceful life for a long time, giving them enough time to increase their strength. On this day, an attendant arrived at Yi Chen's residence. It was Azure Dragon Hall leader Wei Longtao who had ordered him to come. He wanted him to go to the Azure Dragon Hall to discuss some important matters. Arriving at the Azure Dragon Hall, Yi Chen discovered that the other 2 deputy leaders had also arrived. Deputy Yi Chen, Wu Chuan and Su Danian greeted Yi Chen one after another. Yi Chen returned their greetings one by one. On the main seat, Wei Longtao saw Yi Chen's arrival and said, "All right, everyone. This time, I've called you here because I have a mission for you. However, this mission is rather big, and you won't be able to accomplish it alone. It will require the cooperation of 2 people. Therefore, you should discuss among yourselves who should go." Su Danian asked, "Leader, what is the mission this time?" 5 Gold Island, number 2 Volcano Island, and Mysterious Spirit Island's resources are almost here. I need you to transport them back. Wei Longtao's voice was very calm, but it caused Wu Chuan and Su Danian to frown. These 3 islands were all rich in resources, producing a lot of resources. The 5 Gold Island mainly produced 5 kinds of rare metal ores. The number 2 Volcano Island produced a large amount of middle-grade flame cloud rock, and the mysterious Spirit Island had 3 middle-grade spirit veins, 2 high-grade middle-grade spirit veins, and 1 peak-grade middle-grade spirit veins. It was easy to imagine how difficult the mission this time would be. After all, the more resources they transported, the more danger they would encounter. In these years, out of 10 times they had transported resources, at least 5 of them had encountered danger, and 3 of them had been surrounded and killed. How can I, Wu Chuan, Dragon Can Vice Hall Master Wu Chuan stood up and expressed his attitude. Su Danian let out a breath and said in a deep voice, Deputy Leader Hu Wenhai's death has already made me feel suffocated. It's best if I don't run into the 4 great factions. If I do, I'll teach them a lesson and kill them all. Therefore I must go this time. The 2 of them indicated that they wanted to go, leaving only Yi Chen alone. Vice Palace Master Yi, this is your first time coming to the Azure Dragon Palace. You are not familiar with the situation here. I think you should not go this time. Give the opportunity to us. Wu Chuan said. Yi Chen said indifferently, I am here to help the Azure Dragon Palace salvage the situation. As for the Blood Battle Seas environment, I am more or less familiar with it. Vice Palace Master Wu, Vice Palace Master Su, you 2 should discuss who should go. After all, there are 2 slots this time. The 2 of them hadn't expected Yi Chen to reject them so bluntly. However, what he said was also reasonable. They hadn't come here to sightsee or to satisfy the craving of a vice temple master. They had come here to do something. But to be honest, the 2 of them didn't think that Yi Chen would be of much use. They weren't underestimating Yi Chen's strength. In fact, the 2 of them didn't dare to underestimate Yi Chen at all. Unfortunately, the situation in the Blood Battle Sea was like this. Forget it, Deputy Palace Master Su, you go. Anyway, we still have a long way to go. Wu Chuan left on his own. Then many thanks. Su Danian cupped his fists. Seeing that the 3 had finished their discussion, Wei Longtao took out 2 palm-sized black bags from his storage ring. They were bulging and filled with things. With a flick of his wrist, the 2 bags landed in Yi Chen and Su Danian's hands respectively. Old rules, each person gets 10 mid-grade storage rings and 50 low-grade storage rings. Put all the resources inside. Each ring must be filled to the brim. Su Danian explained to Yi Chen, Deputy Yi, this is a resource storage ring. Once it's filled, the gems on it will light up. Moreover, there's a restriction on it. You can only put it in but not take it out. Yi Chen nodded. He knew that this was to prevent the treasures from disappearing. As for the amount of resources, they would definitely check the accounts after they returned. There wouldn't be any loopholes. Tomorrow morning, you guys set off. Remember, don't reveal the mission to anyone else. Otherwise, you will be punished according to the palace rules. Yes. The 3 turned around and left the Azure Dragon Palace. Late at night, the night was as cold as water. Inside a luxurious and spacious bedroom, a person with his back facing the light took out a snail-shaped metal artifact. He poured his Zhen Yuan inside, and the artifact faintly glowed. What's wrong? Another mission? A voice unexpectedly came from the artifact. Indeed, the voice was unfamiliar, as if it had been altered. Very well, say it. This time, I want 10 king-grade spirit energy stones. What? Are you crazy? You think a few hundred people and a batch of resources are worth 10 king-grade spirit energy stones? The owner of the artifact said indifferently, Dragon God Celestial Palace's head disciple, 5th disciple, 8th disciple, Dragon King's most favored genius, Yi Chen, along with 700 people's lives and a huge amount of resources. Do you think it's worth 10 king-grade spirit energy stones? The man was silent for a long time before he said, you should know that Challenger-level spiritual crystals can only be found in the remains of Challenger-level spiritual crystals. In this world, the number of Challenger-level spiritual crystals is not endless. How about 5 challenger-level spiritual crystals and 50 top-class spiritual crystals? Alright, dude. The owner of the artifact revealed a faint smile as he told the details of the mission. On the second morning, the training ground was filled with people. Yi Chen and Su Danian arrived one after another. Seeing that Lin Songhai was also in the crowd, Yi Chen faintly nodded. If the latter did not come this time, he would let him know how high the sky was. Without saying anything, Yi Chen and Su Danian said directly, "Let's go." The two of them flew out first, turning into a beam of light that shot out. Then, more than 700 people followed closely behind them, densely packed together. Soon, the crowd disappeared into the horizon. On the boundless ocean, islands were scattered everywhere. The big ones would take a long time to fly past, and the small ones would be left behind in a blink of an eye. In front of the crowd of light, Su Danian and Yi Chen flew side by side. Leader Yi, the 5 Gold Island and the mysterious Spirit Island are the closest, only tens of thousands of miles away. The number 2 Volcano Island is hundreds of thousands of miles away. You and I will go to the 5 Gold Island and the mysterious Spirit Island first, then we will meet up and go to the number 2 Volcano Island. What do you think? Su Danian suggested. All right. Yi Chen agreed. Then I will go to the 5 Gold Island, and you go to the mysterious Spirit Island. You should know the location, right? Half a month ago, I had already found it out. That time, Xing Melian had taken him to a lot of resource islands. Therefore, he knew the locations of the 5 Gold Island, the mysterious Spirit Island, and the number 2 Volcano Island. He also knew about the surrounding ocean environment, as well as where the resources of the 4 enemy parties were located. We are almost there. Have a safe journey. The Azure Dragon Palace was right next to the Blood Battle Ocean. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was in the Blood Battle Ocean. Therefore, the 5 Gold Island and the mysterious Spirit Island were only 600,000 to 700,000 miles away from the Azure Dragon Palace. In 2 days, the crowd had almost reached their destination. If it were not for the large amount of astral-reaching realm warriors in the team, the time would be a couple of times shorter. After half an hour, the 700 people had been divided into 2 groups. One group was Su Danian's team, and the other was Yi Chen's team. The 2 groups flew in different directions, one on the left and the other on the right. There are still 2 hours to go. Everyone hurry up. Yi Chen turned his head and said, "Hurry up." Xing Melian was the one who trusted Yi Chen the most, so she was also yelling right then. Hearing her, everyone did not care about using up their Zhen Yuan anymore. They swallowed a dan to replenish Zhen Yuan and started to increase their speed. Soon, they arrived at the mysterious Spirit Island. There were thousands of mining workers on the island, and the Azure Dragon Palace also had a group of people stationed there. The Dragon God's Celestial Palace had an agreement with the 4 opposing forces. The resources and workers on the island were not allowed to be robbed or harmed. Therefore, they would only be attacked when they were transporting resources, since everyone had their own resources and mining workers. On the Blood Battle Ocean, it would be both sides who would suffer. If they did not control themselves, both sides would be injured, and there would be no benefits at all. The Dragon God's Celestial Palace originally had 1,200 spirit veins on the Blood Battle Ocean. The reason why 200 of them had been robbed was because they were surrounded by the 4 opposing forces, and the environment was not good. Therefore, the 4 opposing forces had directly taken over the island, but did not harm the people on the island. Instead, they had sent them directly to the island which belonged to the Dragon God's Celestial Palace. The Dragon God's Celestial Palace had also agreed to this. Since the environment was not good, it would be extremely dangerous to transport the resources. Otherwise, if they really wanted to fight, the Dragon God's Celestial Palace would most likely be at a disadvantage. There were 3 spirit veins on the mysterious Spirit Island, and there were a lot of resources there. All of them were piled up in a cave. Once people walked in, they could immediately feel the moist nature of the spirit chi. It was because the spirit chi was too dense and sticky. For people with insufficient cultivation, it would not be a good thing to train here, since they would be blown up by the spirit chi and break all of their meridians. Deputy Yi, The spirit stones are all here. The person in charge of the dragon god's celestial palace said with respect. All right. Yichen nodded as he took out a mid-rank resource storage ring. With a wave of his hand, piles of spirit stones were put into the ring. Chapter 680. 3 mid-rank spirit veins, which was a couple of months' worth of mining, was a shocking number. Yichen spent a whole 15 minutes before he managed to put all of the spirit stones into his storage rings. So far, 2 mid-rank storage rings and 10 low-rank storage rings had been filled. Not all of the spirit stones from the mid-rank spirit veins were mid-rank spirit stones. In fact, the low-rank spirit stones were more than the mid-rank ones, taking up half of the total, while the mid-rank spirit stones took up 90% of the remaining half. The top-rank spirit stones were the least, but it was still quite impressive. This was the harvest from 2 top-rank mid-rank spirit veins and 1 top-rank mid-rank spirit vein. And these 3 spirit veins made up quite a lot of the 1,000 spirit veins. After all, out of the 1,000 spirit veins that the dragon god's celestial palace had in the blood battle ocean, 900 of them were all low-rank spirit veins. Dozens of low-rank spirit veins might not even be able to compete with 1 top-rank or top-rank mid-rank spirit vein. After collecting the spirit stones, Yichen did not waste any time and left the mysterious spirit island immediately, bringing his people and flying towards the 5 gold island. On the way, Yichen's eyebrows flicked as he slowed down his speed. Second leader Yi, what's wrong? The middle-aged scholar Yan Quan asked. Yichen raised his arm and pointed to the right. Let's go this way. This way? Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Yao Yifeng's expression changed as he yelled, Second leader Yi, what we need to do right now is to meet up with second leader Su as soon as possible. What are you doing? Yichen looked at Yao Yifeng with a sharp gaze. Am I the second leader, or are you the second leader? All you need to do is follow the orders. Yao Yifeng said with a bit of courage, Right now, the Azure Dragon Palace is in danger. We cannot let you act on your own and put us in unnecessary danger. Please reconsider. Second leader Yi, Attendant Yao is right. We should meet up with second leader Su right now. The longer we are separated, the more dangerous it will be. Deputy Palace Leader Yi, you have to give us a reason. There were too many people who didn't know what was going on. Some of them stood out to support Yao Yifeng. After all, compared to fighting against the Deputy Palace Master, their lives were more important. If they lost their lives, fighting against the Deputy Palace Master wouldn't make any difference. Besides, to be honest, they didn't really trust Yichen. Not everyone had leadership abilities. Yichen narrowed his eyes and stared at Yao Yifeng for a long time. After a while, he said, If we walk in a straight line, we will be ambushed. If we walk on the right front, we can catch them off guard. Is this reason enough? There will be an ambush. Everyone was shocked. Hearing him, a trace of panic flashed through Yao Yifeng's eyes as he forced a smile and said, Second leader Yi, how do you know there will be an ambush? We are all at the Sea of Soul's realm, and our soul power is the same. But, I didn't sense anything. Perhaps you are overthinking. Right then, even Xing Meiyan was looking at Yichen strangely, because she also didn't sense anything strange. She had even checked whether there were any black octopuses under the sea. Moreover, if Yichen sensed an enemy, the enemy would definitely know as well. After all, everyone was at the Sea of Soul's realm, and they were very sensitive to soul power scanning. Yichen said lightly, You don't need to know this. Besides, this is the first time I am explaining to everyone, and also the last time. Next time, whoever dares to disobey will be punished according to the palace rules. Right now, everyone follow me. If you don't, you will be treated as a traitor. Changing his route, Yichen flew toward the right front. Xing Meiyan, Qin Yusen, and the rest hesitated a bit before following him. Soon, most of the people followed, leaving only Yao Yifeng and a small group. Let's go, Yao Yifeng said in a low voice. Although he dared to voice out his opinion, he didn't dare to go against Yichen directly. He was sure that if he did, Yichen would definitely take him down. Although everyone was following behind Yichen, they were still communicating with each other. What the hell is Deputy Yi doing? Instead of gathering with Deputy Su, He said that there is an ambush ahead. I don't believe he can sense it. He is the deputy. We should just follow his orders. Perhaps he has his own concerns. Xing Meilian spoke up for Yi Chen. Yeah, I also believe that senior brother Yi wouldn't do this for no reason. Chen Yusen chose to stand on Yi Chen's side. On the two sides of the original route, groups of people were lying in ambush. There were 6 of them in total. The entrance of the ambush was very wide, at least 1,000 miles wide. The closer it was to the center, the closer the distance between the two sides was. The whole ambush was like an X shape. Reaching the center of the X, one's soul power would be able to sense the people on both sides. Unfortunately, it would already be in the middle of the ambush. Once the enemies saw Yi Chen and the rest, they would send out a signal, and then they would definitely be surrounded. If Yi Chen chose the right front, he would be able to kill them. Although there were a lot of enemies, they were separated into 6 groups, which meant that their manpower was spread out by 6 times. As for how Yi Chen knew about it, it shouldn't be forgotten that Yi Chen's soul power was 5 times that of normal people. He could scan everything within 500 miles, and the quality was even higher than Sea of Souls realm warriors. His soul power was equivalent to a king warrior's soul power. He could sense others, but others would not be able to sense his soul power scanning. This was the advantage and usefulness of Yi Chen. On the island closest to Yi Chen and the rest, 200 people were hiding in a mountain. Their clothes had a swirl pattern on them. They were the warriors of the Water Wave School. This time, our school has sent out 600 warriors, and the Sky Eagle cult has sent out 700 warriors. Altogether, it would be 1,300 warriors. Killing 300 of them would be too easy. The Black King Gate and Whirlwind Gate would definitely be able to kill the other 300 as well. Killing 700 warriors at once. The Azure Dragon Hall has lost almost half of its power. Including the last time, the Azure Dragon Hall has already lost 1,000 warriors in a couple of months. They must be in a panic right now. They can only blame themselves for being careless and not being able to gain the upper hand every time. Yeah, I have to say that the average battling power of the Azure Dragon Hall is a lot higher than ours. If we were to fight with the same number of people, we would be at a disadvantage. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's drink and kill the enemies later. Cheers. Inside the mountain, the aroma of wine filled the air. 800 miles away from the island, Yi Chen stopped. Turning his head, Yi Chen said with a cold voice, "Wait for my order. Once I give the order, everyone will increase their speed. Sea of Souls realm warriors, start attacking the biggest mountain on the island from 30 miles away. Attack while moving forward at full speed. Astral reaching realm warriors, just follow behind us and wait for my order." 100 miles distance would be covered in 7 to 8 breaths for normal Sea of Souls realm warriors, and 20 to 30 breaths for astral reaching realm warriors. As for Yi Chen, it would only take him 2 to 3 breaths. If he used his defensive sword spell, it would be even faster. However, the effect would not be that great by himself, so he would need the other Sea of Souls realm warriors to attack together. As for astral reaching realm warriors, it would be useless, since their speed would be too slow. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen yelled, "Full speed!" Yi Chen flew out first. "Let's go!" Including Lin Songhai, Chen Yusen, and Luo Yunsong, 43 Sea of Souls realm warriors followed closely behind. The 300 astral reaching realm warriors were a lot slower and had been left far behind. 100 miles, 80 miles, 60 miles, 50 miles. Inside the mountain on the island, a Sea of Souls realm warrior subconsciously released his soul power and then took it back immediately. "HM?" He frowned and released his soul power again. All of a sudden, his expression changed. "Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Get out of the mountain now!" Without waiting for him to finish speaking, a huge black thunderball exploded on the mountain peak. Then, sword chi, saber chi, palm energy, fist energy, true essence, crescent moon light, claw shadows, all of them bombarded the mountain peak. For a moment, time seemed to stand still above the island, and the air was as thick as water. Rumble! The black thunderball released by Yi Chen was the first to show its effect. The aggressive black lightning shot everywhere like countless black flood dragons playing in the sky. The sky changed color. The sword chi and blade chi cut everything in front of them open, while the palm power and fist power shattered the whole place. Screams were heard one after another. No one knew how many people had died in this sudden attack. Even the powerful Sea of Souls realm warriors were not spared. Xing Meiyan and the rest were stupefied. They had followed Yi Chen's orders to not release their soul power. Whoever dared to release their soul power would be killed without mercy. Therefore, only when the mountain was shattered and the people inside turned into ashes did they realize that there were enemies here. How did he know? This was what everyone wanted to know. Don't let a single one go. Yi Chen's expression was cold. He knew that if he let one go, he wouldn't be able to continue killing the enemy forces. The four forces had killed so many people of Dragon God's Celestial Palace. This time, it was time for them to suffer a heavy blow. Moreover, it would be an extremely painful one. Attack! Xing Meiyan admired Yi Chen from the bottom of her heart. She had already made up her mind. In the future, whatever Yi Chen said, she would do. Among everyone, Lin Songhai was the most hardworking. He had previously said that he would compete with Yi Chen in terms of number of kills, and now, it had already begun. As a master-level sword artist who was no weaker than the second master of the Elder Union, Lin Songhai alone was more than enough to fight against a lot of people. That dense sword chi covered over, and a huge area in the center of the island was under the attack of his sword chi. Unfortunately, Yi Chen's one thunderball had killed too many people. No matter how one looked at it, he was still a little bit lacking. The whole island was thrown into chaos. There were less than 10 people left, all of whom were head attendants and battle attendants. As for the other Sea of Soul realm experts and astral reaching experts, they were all dead, not a single one left alive. Run! These 7 or 8 enemies scattered, running for their lives. Swish! A black sword chi slashed out, devouring 2 enemies not far away. This was an attack launched by Yi Chen. Although the others were running, there were too many attacks. Being caught in the fierce firepower net, how could they escape? One after another, they were shattered into pieces. At this point, the first surprise attack was a complete success. Yi Chen and 40 people had killed more than 200 enemies, and the astral reaching experts had yet to catch up. They could only be useful in a frontal battle. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.